Have you ever noticed how the people who trigger you the most are often reflecting back something that you can't quite see in yourself? I think one of the consciousness understandings that has changed my life the most is the idea that our external world operates like a mirror. And not in some superficial thoughts become things way, although there's also a lot of truth to that, but in a much more precise, almost mathematical system. And the Kabbalists understood this. They spoke of the divine matrix, where every soul encounter serves the evolution of consciousness. And Eastern philosophy has always recognized that what we perceive as separate from us is actually just extensions of our own awareness, playing out the unresolved patterns within our psyche. But here's what most spiritual teachings don't tell you. There are actual laws governing these reflections. Universal principles as reliable as physics, as predictable as chemistry. And when you understand how these laws work, you realize that nothing, absolutely nothing, shows up in your reality by accident.
It's also mind-blowing to think that we are creating it all. That, again, because we're children of God, that we have God's abilities. We were just told we don't, again, by people out there who are in fear, competition and things. When we start to connect with this and understand this, I would see a lot of people go, and I went through these myself too. I'm in an abusive relationship. How is it I'm going from relationship to relationship? I pick the best people I can. And then within 6 months to a year, it becomes abusive again. Do I have a sign on me? Yeah, it's in your creator field. And it's going to amplify every single time.
There's something that most people don't realize about spiritual awakening. The deeper you go, the more precise the feedback becomes. What used to feel like random chaos starts revealing itself as this intricate system of cause and effect. Patterns you couldn't see before become glaringly obvious. The people who trigger you, the obstacles that arise, the opportunities that appear, none of it is coincidence. But here's what trips people up. When we're operating from victim consciousness, even when we've been genuinely wronged, we are still playing out an unconscious pattern. The universe doesn't distinguish between justified anger and petty revenge. It only responds to the frequency we're emitting, the story that we're telling ourselves about our power. And this is where most manifestation teachings fall short, because they focus on the surface level. Visualize what you want, raise your vibration, think positive thoughts. But they miss those deeper mechanics of how consciousness actually creates reality. They don't address why the same patterns keep showing up, why some people seem immune to traditional manifestation techniques, or why our greatest breakthroughs often come through our deepest breakdowns. Ancient wisdom traditions knew something that I think we've forgotten. That consciousness doesn't just influence reality, it literally constructs it. Moment by moment, through the laws that operate whether we understand them or not. And we're living in such an incredible time because what the mystics have always known, quantum physics is finally proving. That observation changes matter. That consciousness and creation are inseparable. Like the Hermetic principle, as above, so below. So what if your most difficult relationships are actually more like assignments? What if the obstacles that feel like punishment are really the universe's way of showing you exactly where you still give your power away? What if every person who triggers you is just offering you a glimpse of an unconscious belief that's ready to be healed? So this isn't about taking responsibility for other people's choices or blaming yourself for everything that happens. It's more like recognizing that in a universe where consciousness creates reality, nothing is random. Everything is information. And when you learn to decode that information, when you understand the precise laws governing how energy becomes matter, you stop being a victim of circumstance and become a conscious participant in your own evolution. Today, our guest is Alessandro Giannetti, a consciousness researcher who spent decades mapping the precise mechanics of how universal laws operate in our daily lives. After discovering profound healing abilities as a child and navigating his own series of life-altering challenges, he developed scientifically based methods for understanding all of those invisible forces that shape our reality, forces that most people don't even know exist, and he teaches them through guided light healing. In this episode, you will learn how the law of reflections reveals that your most toxic relationships are mirrors of how you treat yourself in areas you probably don't even realize. Why the universe literally creates villains in your life, and the dark, energetic rituals you're accidentally performing, especially the ones that create karmic cycles that destroy your own life. Can we talk about back to school chaos for a second? The kids are getting back into routines, everyone's schedules are crazy, and suddenly you're supposed to have dinner on the table every night like some kind of magician. But want to know what I figured out? Shopping, planning, and cooking food really can be simple and stress-free, which is why I love Hungry Root. Hungry Root takes the stress out of mealtime by filling your cart with personalized picks and planning your week of meals, getting smarter with every order. With over 15,000 recipes to choose from each week, many ready in just 15 minutes or less, it's a huge lifesaver on those busy weeknights. I personally love their Smart Cart technology. It learns what I actually like and then recommends groceries, recipes, and supplements tailored to my tastes and needs. Plus, I love the kids' snack section where I get these really easy snacks to just keep in the car or throw in our to-go bags or lunch boxes for those of you who need them. They screen out over 200 additives, including high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners. They only source high-quality meat and seafood with no hormones or antibiotics, and they carry trusted brands like Oatly and Vital Farms. The time that I have gotten back has been incredible. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/mindlove and use code MINDLOVE. That's hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE. Welcome to the show, Alessandro. I'm really excited to have you here because I discovered you divinely. I felt really guided. I was actually updating some keywords on my own podcast. And so I was searching consciousness, spirituality, and seeing what popped up. And your most recent episode happened to be about leaving bad reviews being a kind of a negative karmic cycle. And I needed to hear that right then because I was really struggling coming out of a coaching container that just was not what they said it was going to be, wondering if I should warn people, feeling weird about bad reviews the last few years. And you just framed it in the way that made exact sense to me. Because over the last couple of years too, I've really started to get a clear understanding of how I view God. And I see God as this divine matrix of universal laws. And so all of this converging into one podcast episode led me down a rabbit hole of all your other content. And so how did you get here? What's your story that led you to doing what you're doing?
It's pretty wild. It started probably, I would say around 5 years old. I had this crazy fascination with Japanese and Chinese martial arts and that type of stuff as a kid. I was like running around thinking I was a reincarnated ninja. And so my parents are, looking at me, not knowing what to do with this, and then sign me up for martial arts. And that's kind of where it all started. There was a couple unique things about that. And the first being that the style of martial arts I got involved with and not knowing anything about it, obviously being 5, but there was an internal component where it was around the age of 12 years old. We started this type of training called Qigong. And what that essentially is using the energy from the body, using energy from the earth, and being able to clear out energy and to use it for striking purposes and things like that. What really blew my mind is in martial arts, there's always this test of like, oh, how good have you gotten? And one of the tests they would give is they would set a stack of bricks And normally you develop this technique, this very, very hard technique, and you're going to punch through with your whole body and you're going to break a stack of bricks. Well, with this style, didn't really know what I was doing or why I was doing it because I was younger. And then later on, when I was 15, 14, started to find out like what you can do with this stuff. But they laid out the stack of bricks in front of me, and my buddy of mine, my instructor, was like, all you're going to do is you're going to breathe and you're going to tap the bricks and then stack of bricks and they're going to break. And I was like, wait, what? So anyway, walked me through, this energy you've been storing. Your body's like a battery. This energy you've been storing, you're just going to turn over your hand and tap the bricks and they're going to break. And did exactly that. And boom, right in front of my eyes. I was like, what is this magic? I am a superhero, and just lost it. So from that, being in martial arts, we were getting injured. So part of the style was like, you can put your hands on injuries and you can essentially bring up the frequency. And I explain all this in a very science way down the road. But right now you can put your hands on, you can bring up the frequency, you can clear out the bad energy, and then people are going to heal faster. And I started finding out that people who weren't in martial arts, I had this craving to go, oh, that's injured. Let me help you with that. And then going and talking to doctors right beforehand, they're like, it's going to be 3 months before I can use this. And then it was like, I don't know, 3-4 days later, they're like, I don't know what's going on, what the magic is, but it's working. And the doctor can't believe it. So I had a bit of those experiences, and that kind of thrust me into the world. But what really thrust me into the world was, I think I was more banged up and more obstacles than most people had had in their lives. So while I had a great family, the world was very predatory, and I had all these crazy things happen to me from, I would say, about the age of 6 to maybe 26, around there. And it just had jumped areas of my life. But the thing was, a lot of the things that were happening to me, there were kind of no solutions for it. So it's sort of like, and therapy wasn't even a thing really back then at that point in my life. So it was like, you just live with this stuff, you throw it in a closet and that's it. And I had this inner knowing that that wasn't going to work for me, and being an engineer mindset. And that was my whole drive. When you would ask me as a kid, what do you want to be? I want to be an engineer. So I had this idea I was going to build like satellites and lasers and things like that. But I had this desire as a scientist to solve things, to solve the unsolvable problems. And that was the other thing, is going through these obstacles, carrying these things and going, I don't want to carry any of these things anymore. I don't want to be angry, because later on, I learned that stuff causes cancer. So I wanted sort of a clean slate. And the problem solver, chess player in me was like, we got to find a way. And I think it was the combination of these two of going, this stuff literally will kill me. And then the fascination with, I need to know how the world works. And then sort of the gut feelings that got unlocked with doing energy work. That's kind of my origin story, I guess.
Yeah. I also feel grateful for all of the hardships that happened to me at a young age. I remember for a while thinking, like, why have I been dealt this hand? And now it's just so clear. I was a soul seeking deep transformation quickly, and it set me on my path a lot earlier, whereas other people, it's a slower buildup, which is also perfect for their path, but that wasn't mine. And so even now, even when hardships hit me now, last year, I ended up having a hard year, and it was so interesting to be able to almost witness what I was going through from a higher perspective. And because of my background in religion, I got a lot of time thinking about what divinity actually was and what didn't make sense to me. And one of those things was just, how is it that so many millions of people literally believe that there's just some humanistic being actually making decisions based on, and sometimes if you pray, it's not going to be answered because it's his choice. But if you pray, then sometimes it will work. And then if you're lucky and if you're chosen, and it's just like, what? How does any of this actually make sense in one worldview? Is anybody thinking deeply enough to even notice that their thoughts aren't cohesive?
And that's what's going on in the world right now. Is there's this sort of scheme, we can call it, behind the scenes of going, that's pushing people to not critically think, not to ask questions and all these things, because, there are people in these deeply rooted fear-based places, but they've got power, they've got money and all these things, and they're smart and they don't have the same moral compass, but they ask these questions every day. How can there be less competition in the world with the things we have control over? How can we stop this from happening? And the big thing in the world right now, which is at the core of this, is the big lesson on the planet right now is that we all have an internal voice. And it's a time in history that if we don't start listening to it, the penalties, they're the highest they've ever been on in the planet. And we saw this with the pandemic, with COVID and everything else. There were a lot of people who deeply, deeply felt like they did not want to put some experimental thing in their body based on what they knew about it. But the problem is the system, the contagions, the influence was so hard, and do not question people in places of authority and all these things that kind of get trained in schools. And there were a lot of people that I see all around the world who were bullied forced into going against their internal voice. And the penalties are that their immune systems were maimed in a way that they're walking around with a 40% of the immune system that they had before. Or even worse, some people are losing parts of function in the body and things like that. So this big lesson where the planet's at right now is that it's something that, and I went through all the stuff, Catholic schools and things like that, but Christ talked about, but it's not as famous as it should be, is that the kingdom of God, the kingdom of source, is within, and you don't need to find it in a structure under a rock or any of these other places. It's within. And this is the big lesson for humanity right now, is that every person on this planet, what you're talking about, has a unique soul path, soul pull. Their higher selves created them to be the first to bring about something in this life. So if you're an inventor of a new way of being of service to people, can you invent if all of the secrets are within you when you're listening to somebody else, when somebody else is telling you how to live your life? Now your soul path, soul pull becomes their soul path, soul pull, and you're supposed to be the authority on it. And now it can't happen because there's outside advice. So this is why it's so important in the world. And what you're talking about is the difference between our created self is kind of here to accomplish this thing. Now, the bigger the thing they're supposed to bring to humanity, what happens is you will go through a lot more obstacles because, like I say, humans by nature, very, very lazy. Netflix gets me all the time. And, the programming is so good. So it'd be very easy not to do anything. But, and that's when things are going good in our life. But when things are obstacle, we grow fast. We have to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We have to learn. We have to move because sometimes our life is at risk on these things. And when we look back, it's the obstacles that gave us the biggest, most profound growth in our life. And that's sort of what people don't understand when we talk about the physics of the world and how the system is designed. That's one of the things, is that take away the obstacles, humanity's growth falls off a cliff. And that's what you've noticed a bit. And usually the bigger the purpose, the higher frequency of the soul, we talk about in terms of one, you'd be not existent, to 1,000. The higher you're getting there, the more obstacle you're going to find was in your life, because the greater the obstacle, the more frequent the obstacle, the bigger the awakening, the bigger the remembering from whatever your energy was doing before this one. So saying all the right things is what I'm trying to say here.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let's be real about something. Workplace stress is not just part of the job anymore. 61% of people are dealing with stress levels that are way beyond normal, and it is not sustainable. I used to think that grinding through stress was some kind of badge of honor. Push harder, sleep less, ignore what your body was telling you. And it nearly broke me when I was working for startups. And look, maybe that voice in your head telling you to make a change is right. Maybe you do need to quit your job or completely flip your life. But whether you're making big moves or just trying to survive your current situation, you need tools to handle it well. And that's where therapy comes in. Modern therapy teaches you how to set boundaries without the guilt, how to trust your intuition instead of second-guessing yourself constantly, how to make better decisions from a place of clarity instead of chaos. And BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform with over 30,000 therapists. They've got a 4.9 rating from 1.7 million reviews because it actually works. You can talk to someone from anywhere, and you can switch therapists anytime if it's not the right fit. A vacation won't fix chronic stress, but the right support can help you navigate whatever comes next. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. My listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/mindlove. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mindlove.
Yes, Mr. Gecko, you're a huge inspiration to us all. But who was your muse?
Oh, my dear old Nan. She imparted many wise words to me. She would say, never let the fame get to your head, always remember who you are, and let people get more than just savings with Geico's fast and friendly claim support. I lived up to her advice, and now anyone can file a claim anywhere and anytime. I miss her so much.
Did she go somewhere?
Yeah, extended quilting trip.
Get more than just savings. Get more with Geico.
You mentioned the way the system is designed. And I love the way divine guidance works, first of all, because I have a spark of idea. And usually I am then sent all of the resources to help me clarify that idea. And so there were a number of things that had influenced how I saw the structure of God, oneness, totality, all that is. One of the first things was The Divine Matrix by Greg Braden. That put things into perspective. But then even teachings like A Course in Miracles and Eastern philosophy, the Kabbalah, so many different schools of thought essentially saying the same thing, which to me made much more sense. If I were God and I were designing a universe, would I design it so that I had to micromanage and play off of my own emotion? Or would I design it to be self-sustaining based on fairness and structures that fuel the growth of all that exists within it so that there... So speaking of the divine laws, like I said, I sort of binged your podcast, which you should definitely be restarting again. But tell me how you got clarity on your understanding of the divine laws.
So my approach is always, what's a new way of doing things? What doesn't exist? I think in terms of that. And then one of the things I've had to think about, what are some of my contributions going to be? Like, what does humanity need? And I think the scientist, the engineer in me kind of looked at humanity and said, all right, what is next? And one of the first things it started with is, we are children of source. And if you think about in the physical world, when we're born from our parents, we've got 50% of mom's traits, dad's traits, and some are awake and some are recessive, but we've got all of their stuff within us. So what I knew was anything that exists in the physical has to exist in the energetic, right? It's got to have sort of that seed to grow into the physical. So it was this deep thing of going, well, if we're children of source, then I can't imagine Source being cruel because I don't know Source to be cruel. That Source is like, you're going to be my children, but you get none of my abilities. So there was this inner feeling of like, that's a truth. That's something I need to pursue. How can I know this for sure? So what I did was part of my journey was, I think, to contribute to understanding the internal voice, that thing that a lot of people learned never to not listen to again after the pandemic because of the consequences. We all have this internal voice. And the way I explain it is very simply, it's kind of like learning a language. And the same way we can, with our fingers, feel Braille and translate those bumps into words, intuition works in a very, very similar way. There are all these things that we're feeling, and examples of this I give. If you've ever been in a workplace of 6 or more people, it could be 2 people, but it's great. And then they hire this new employee, and this new employee comes in and they're just down on life. They are angry. And within a week or 2, they poison that whole great atmosphere that was there. And that's known as a contagion. And we pick up on people's emotions. We read people's emotions. We read their thoughts and all of these other things. And it can infiltrate whoever is more rooted in this stuff. So we've got examples of this stuff all over the place. But for me, I was like, okay, especially this came years later. I actually didn't know this in the beginning, but our eyes, most people don't realize our eyes are not seeing pictures. They're seeing waves, frequency, vibration, all of these other things. They're not seeing pictures. So our eyes are kind of like this, almost like a metal detector, pulling in all these bits of information. And then what's happening is our brain is trying to put it all together. And sometimes it does a great job and sometimes it doesn't. Like with the Native Americans, when the people first came and arrived in the United States, what happened was the Native Americans, they saw people walk out of the water. Well, their brain had never seen or understood these massive, great big ships on shore. So all of the frequency, vibration, all of the things that the eyes have been scientifically shown to pick up for data and details, if the brain doesn't have a reference for it, it can't create an image. So it was just invisible. So that's kind of the idea is we've got all these things coming in. The brain's putting pictures to this, and the brain gets it wrong when it's never seen something before. So intuition is reading all of these frequencies, seeing all of this stuff out there. And there's way more different forms of intuition, but we're all doing it already because we're not seeing pictures. So what I ended up doing was spending a long time with this and developing a system of going, okay, so there is this thing of intuition, but I don't know, it's 55% accuracy doesn't feel right. And it's funny, there were a few famous intuitives in the world at the time who were famous in the stock markets and things like that. But again, when asked about their track record, 55%, I was like, that's awful. It's a little better in playing a coin toss, not for me. So I started to take my brain, the engineer part, and go, let me hack this system. Let me start to read on these things and let me start to turn everything into very, very, very precise information. So what one of my contributions to intuition is being able to turn it like a light switch on and off, but also make it very scientifically precise to where I could isolate something that was in the EMF, the creator field, something that was in the frequency, vibration, hues, stuff out there, isolate it, just like learning a language and listening to the inflections and listening to the tongue placement and things like that. When we sit with this, I sat with it for long enough and started to catalog everything. Like in the 1950s, they had this little electric device that can measure electricity, and it didn't have to touch anything to do this. So what they were doing in the 50s was they would take this little probe and they would scan, and they would hit these specific frequencies. And what had happened was they started to detect a certain frequency as like cancer. I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. And then they ran into an anomaly where it was like 40% of the subjects, when they were detecting with the electricity in the, we'll say it's the EMF in there, what had happened was they're like, this says cancer, but there's no cancer there. But then within 6 months, and that's how it works, everything starts energetic, goes to physical. What happened within 6 months is these people develop cancer in those exact areas. So basically, with the eyes, with all these other gifts, our ability to read forces, our ability to understand electricity. I mean, we communicate in light and electricity with internally in our body. There's this language around us that if you spend enough time with, you can get 10 times more accurate with it. It's 10 times more descriptive than our vocabulary. And you can develop this ability to know almost like in a godly way things before it happens. There's no such thing as time, space. So past, present, and future are all existing right now. And we can access all of it because it's still running. So I developed a way, not only for myself, but for the world to learn to get 100% accurate with intuition. And you can use it to figure out what's going on with your finances, why you're getting sick, what it goes back to, very specific time and place in your life, what you're holding on to, and things like that. So that was, I think, one of the cool things that I've brought about so far for people is this going from 55% accuracy to 100%, because every person on the planet needs to listen to the internal voice. And if you can't decode it, it's a little difficult to follow that blueprint inside of you, of your life, your soul path, soul pull. So that's kind of how I would throw that down.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Intuition is something most people, I assume, listening to this podcast are leaning into at this point, even if it's just a seed of an idea. But that's become my most important path of learning, really, because everything else is a byproduct of intuition. It makes decision making so much easier when you know that it's coming from your heart, the core of who you are, exactly where you're meant to be, rather than, well, which one do I choose? There's 1,000 different businesses I could have chosen. There's 1,000 different decisions I can even make within my current business right now. And it's difficult to figure out the smartest path, the most profitable. And will those ultimately be the most fulfilling if it's not coming from my own internal guidance and the impact that I'm meant to make? And one thing that I've found incredibly helpful in that guidance, or even in one thing that's become really one of my core messages, is really using your story as sacred curriculum. And that's where the divine laws have been really helpful, because I can see, why does this keep showing up for me? Why did I invest money in this coaching program that ended up being nothing of what they promised me it was going to be? And there's the little things of like now it is so important to me. I overgive in all my programs because I want to make sure I don't duplicate that response, but there's more. And so when you're seeking that curriculum for yourself, how do you approach the divine laws? Which ones have you found are most important to understand?
There's so many good ones, but one of the things we do at Guided Light Healing is we work on empowerment and getting people on their soul path, soul pull. And there's this law of reflections. So it starts wholly with the law of soul balance. And what this law simply is when you're a kid, you have this great dream of being an astronaut. And you're like, I'm going to be an astronaut. I'm going to go to Mars. That's what it is now. Back then it was like, I'm going to go to the moon. So
we still haven't gone to the moon. Let's be real.
Yeah,
Continue.
right. I know. And so much to say about that. Yeah, but
somehow we've just moved on, but
forget the moon. It's too easy, even though, So, we've got these aspirations for that as a kid. And then what happens is we get in school and let's say we're trying to figure out some geometry of something, or trying to build something. And somebody, probably a teacher, goes, "Ooh, you're not very good at math. You're not very good at science and physics." And it sticks with us and we go, damn, that's probably true. They're an adult. So now, instead of being an astronaut, and I'm going to just take a moment and I'm going to go, you know what? All right, that's fine. Can't be an astronaut, but I'm going to be a pilot, right? I'm going to be a fighter pilot and fly those amazing fast jets. And then what happens is the second we make that concession, there's a problem, because our soul path, soul pull requires that we are the best version of ourselves. So the second we say, I'm not the person I thought I was, now our highest capabilities are achieving 88% of the soul path, soul pull, because we were supposed to approach it as, I know I can be an astronaut, but now there are certain things I can't do. So there is a law of focus, which means the things I focus on are going to become greater in my creator field. The forces are going to increase on that. And then I'm going to get more of that, because the creator field, which is hundreds of thousands of times more powerful than what our muscles can do, it is arranging everything based on focus. So a focus example would be like, I don't have enough money. The creator field's going to translate that as create more situation of feeling like there's not enough money. So it's going to amplify that. It bounces around. Some of the science of that being that our brain has a program, it connects memories, it goes through emotions, and it starts to kind of like a microphone feedback will amplify. And again, it creates more of the thing. And we're all tripped out because we're like, doesn't the creator field speak human? It doesn't. It's very subject focused and more or less of that. And it's not like, I don't want this. It doesn't understand I don't. So we've got the law of focus, which I'm not smart at this, which is going to create more situations, tests in school, parents noticing situations. You are going to, with the forces and controlling matter, create situation, circumstance, and people who are going to verify this, blow this out. So every single time we drop down our idea of self, what happens is, again, the soul path, soul pull, which is a contract with God, contract with source. And now we're not delivering at that level. So you talked about this system, this built-in system to get people to their potential. So source doesn't have to be hands-on in the way that would drive anyone crazy. So we've got this built-in system that every time we regress a little bit, we see ourselves as a little bit less. Our subconscious brain, there's science for the reason why this is, but the laws for the reason of why this is what will happen is situation, circumstance, and people are going to become sort of the opposition to this. So think of it as we've fallen a little bit into the victim mentality. So what the universe has it built in is it will create a villain, because what happens is we may play victim sometimes for 25 years, but if the villain is big enough, great enough, and you're backed up against the wall, someday, again, maybe 30 years without intuition, but someday you're going to stand up for yourself. And in that standing up for yourself of going, they're saying you're not good enough, you'll never be able to. And then one day it's like, I'm tired of this. I never want to hear this again. Of course I'm good enough. And now you're starting to stand up for yourself. And now this dropping down that happened with your idea of self has now starting to rise back up. And now you're getting closer to be able to fulfill these potentials. So that law, I think it's one of my favorite laws to start people with, because the perception is the world's a cruel place. It's a hard place, but it's also mind blowing to think that we are creating it all. That again, because we're children of God, that we have God's abilities. We were just told we don't, again, by people out there who are in fear of competition and things. And when we start to connect with this and understand this, I would see a lot of people go, and I went through these myself too. I'm in an abusive relationship. How is it I'm going from relationship to relationship? I pick the best people I can. And then within 6 months to a year, it becomes abusive again. Do I have a sign on me? Yeah, it's in your creator field, and it's going to amplify every single time. So the idea is when we say, there's nothing I can do about bad people, you take away all your power. Law of focus turns into this thing of going, find more ways to be powerless around people. But if we get to this place of going, I create everything in my life, now it gives you the ability to actually change and control it. Because if I say I don't have the ability to do this, the science of my creator field goes, great, create more situation of showing I don't have the ability to do this. But the second I go, I have the ability to do this, the law of focus starts to work for me. And this is where I start to see more and more ways. I start to learn more about the laws and how this works. And one of the things I will find about this law, these two amazing concepts, is the universe's job is to push me back up from the place I fell. Okay, that's number one. Number two, whatever the thing is, the universe is supposed to be the villain to, again, teach me to fight for myself, teach me to believe in myself. Now, when you kind of expand your consciousness to a certain level, what you'll find out is usually at the early levels, what I'm doing to somebody else in my life. So how I'm treating a mom, how I'm treating a sibling or somebody that is important to me in a relationship, in a situation, is going to treat me the same exact way. And this is where people think karma is a real thing. So that's sort of the first part of this law of reflections. But then when you know enough about the spiritual world, when you cross over a certain frequency, you learn what you do to yourself is going to be mirrored by the people in your life. And this is absolute scientific law. There is no 98% of the time. This is 100% time. But we need intuition to know the exact piece of this. So when we start to engage with this and go, wow, this person is being super critical, the only way this can be happening is if I am being super critical to myself in an area of my life. And for those of you guys who may not have heard this yet, there are 8 areas of our life. It's usually the one we don't care about is where the problems are, and the minimization of self. But if we go and we're like, okay, physically, I don't need it for my career, but physically I'm very, very, very hard on myself. And if I learn to change that and treat myself different here, that gives me the power to change the relationship. And it is 100% of the time. I've changed around 25 years of abuse in relationships. I've seen everything, millions of different people, and it's 100% every time works. That when we isolate, and this is where the intuition is important, but we isolate this relationship with self, we reprogram it, we change it, all the relationships in the life change. And this is why I was like the career whisperer for a while. Is people were like, it's just magic. And I was like, well, it's really just physics, but sure, it's magic.
What I love about that is it's just a more descriptive and scientific way of understanding, for example, Byron Katie's The Work, which has affected millions of lives. And when I worked with her book, I remember I was working on some issues with my mother. There had just been so many changes in my relationship with her over a short period of time. I was wondering if I was crazy. She gave up drinking and a lot of things have improved, but I don't think it's a coincidence that I started really doing the work, applying the work, trying not to blame her. I was looking at her like she was just batshit crazy. And my husband could even confirm it for a period of time. But when I started doing the work on me and my beliefs, things started to shift externally. And so Byron Katie's 4 questions is basically like, is it true? How do you react when that happens? Who would you be without that thought? But then the power that I found was in turning it around. And so I'm sitting here looking at my mom. My mom doesn't accept me. She wants me to be different. She's too dogmatic in her religious beliefs. And I'm over here, okay, how do I turn that to the opposite? I don't respect her. Okay, this is true in this container right now. Turning it to the self. I don't respect myself. Does it bother me that she doesn't respect my beliefs if I'm so firm in them? Turning it to the other. So just all of the different ways that you can see these, like the prism of reflection of this one belief bouncing between me and my mom and within myself. That is the law of reflections, just written through almost worksheet like work.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You talked about, everything out there's got like this gold nugget in it. Every religion's got something that keeps bringing people back. Every person who accumulates a lot of people who are listeners and students, they've got some gold nuggets in it. And this is exactly right. You find the gold nuggets in this, you find the key places, and it gives you complete ability to change it all. And this is where intuition's great, is because in one of those areas in which you're talking about with your mom, it's sort of like how you see yourself socially. It's sort of this idea and this dream you have socially, and then where you are right now. And then this is that dynamic of not accepting that piece. And we have it everywhere. I mean, I make this joke. My reflections have reflections at this point in my life with teaching it and doing all the things. Like, I'm getting more, not less. But for each thing, each reflection is giving us tools that actually accelerate our soul path, soul pull. It's actually the way to get there. So when I would start to understand, like, okay, so it's happening in the social area of my life, how I see myself, how people see me, how the world receives me. I want to be here. I see this here. I do not accept that this is the way the world sees me, or I do not accept how people treat me in the world. And then this has to be shown up through a person you can't throw away. You cannot ignore. And for a lot of people, so the cool thing about having a mom do that is it doesn't have to show up in your relationship, because if mom's not there, your creator field, higher self, guides, they got to play with what's in your life. So it would turn up in your relationship with your husband. So I had this conversation with my partner not too long ago, where she's in a partnership. She has a partner, and she every once in a while, she's like, they're so hard to work with. And she'd almost be on the verge of tears and like, I don't want to do this anymore. And immediately I let her know, I was like, I feel you. I was like, I get this, but I do want you to see the bigger picture of this situation. How has our relationship been? And she's like, remarkable, right? And all the things, right? Because we work on it. And I was like, when's the last time we had a disagreement or a fight? And she was like, I don't know. I can't think. And I was like, you remember when you started that job? And from then till now, would you say we've had any? No. Would you say before? Yeah. Alessandro, I'll point out one or two. And then I go and I show her, I was like, if you cut them out and I'm your person, which I am, and there's not really any other places, that stuff probably is going to come back into the relationship. It has to exist somewhere in your life. So that's another law, that this you have to have everything in your life somewhere based on the pieces you have that can play out those roles. So I was like, before you do this, I'm in support if you want to leave this job, but before you do, just understand what is going to happen, how that has to transfer, and it probably will come back into the relationship, because before they were here, we had things we had to figure out and kind of, come together on and work through. So, and she was like, yeah, now she's in a rock and a hard place of going like, you're right. I can run away. I cannot answer the phone. I get 5 days before I have to talk to them again. And maybe that is a good place to keep the arguments if I have to have arguments in my life. So it's like, well, I'm going with you is like, mom's a great character to keep in your life right now, because husband's going to be like, great.
Yes. And as I mentioned, this whole year, all of 2025, I forgot what year it was for a second, has been so wonderful. I feel like I got my mom back. And so it now makes me ask, what part of myself did I get back? What part of myself did I heal in order to see my mother as the truth of who she is, instead of the projection of her, the caricature that I'm creating from my own internal wounds?
So if I can add in, I know a little bit about your story. It's fascinating, but that's the opposition I'm talking about. When you went through what you did before that, there was this, now you had the toughest image in the world of self to overcome. And that was your obstacle to change the way you saw yourself and how you interact with people and how people see you. And because that catapulted, it became the bully, and you were like, it's all wrong. And you found a way to push through that. Now you're this new version of this truer, this higher frequency version of seeing yourself and embracing who you are and standing in the world in your truer nature versus where you are. Your mom, the relationship with your mom had to change as a result of that, because that was the aspect that was controlling that part of the relationship. And when you were in that obstacle, that changed everything. And it makes perfect sense. Like, I see how all the pieces go together. It's wild.
That is fascinating. And it also has me thinking, this feels like motivation to go out and create more relationships, because otherwise you're putting all the pressure on the ones you hermit with to be everything to you.
That's exactly right. It's like, spread the love, spread the anger, spread the unkind words. It's so true, though, because if you're going out there, going to the supermarket and, people are bumping their carts into you and starting arguments, they're like, whew, there's one less argument with my partner this week. This is great.
I also want to come back to what I had originally found you for about this. I was just so fascinated in the way that when I heard you speak about it, it just felt true. It was what my heart was kind of unraveling over the years of the negative ritual that reviews create. And I think it's relevant because it goes more than just reviews. It kind of speaks to the idea that so often we think something's just a one-off, but how many things are actually creating a ripple effect where it creates a almost dark force ritual that comes back to us over and over again after the first time that we put it out into the world. So just tell me a little bit about this idea of kind of dark force rituals based on our actions, whether it's just specifically to reviews or even more than that.
Yeah. So people are starting to become familiar with this idea of contagions. And there was a Heart Math Institute, did some fascinating stuff years ago. Not sure what they're working on now, but they found that hearts were able to sync up, and they were able to prove this with the right instruments, that hearts could sync up from across the world. And this would give credit to how powerful our emotions are. And going back to that example of, you could have the perfect work environment and a person comes in who's rooted to a really deep, dark, heavy place. That stuff is going to overpower the lighter, happy, not really rooted, but balanced people. They're going to pick up on this heavier place, and it's going to kind of overpower them. Well, what happens is our creator fields and this is sort of another contribution we were able to give with intuition, the scientifically precise forms we use. We were able to break down our energetic body in a way, just like we know the anatomy of the physical body. We're the first ones that I've seen anywhere break it down and be able to explain all the emotion field, the different layers of the aura, what they do, and all the different parts. There's multi parts of our creator field and how it controls every piece of matter in our life. It's just a science fact, creates all situations, circumstance, people, impressions, all of that. So we've got this whole process in these creator fields that are affecting things. So with that, what happens is, we, not knowing how much control we have over these things, we're just allowing all these things to kind of spur up and start to mess us up with like what we want to happen versus what does. So the question piece was, just remind me so I can.
It was kind of an amalgamation of several, but I loved the idea of the dark force reviews, but how it has more impact beyond just this moment.
So what happens with our creator fields, I'll give you a great example of the first rituals that we see all the time. So with these contagions. So let's say we're in competition for a job, right? And in that moment, I somehow get in my head that you stole this job from me. Then as a human response, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, I hope the universe dishes out justice for this. And what my belief is, doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. It's the focusing of my creator field, the focusing of that matter. And what people don't realize, and it's gotten lost because of our whole ideas of how source works. Like source can prevent things, source can't prevent things. It's this whole thing. But because of free will, source doesn't change anything outside of us. Source can work through us, but cannot work outside of us. So source will not be able to stop a car from barreling down the street at us. Source can work through us to get our creator field to get the driver to notice us and stop the car. So Source can work through us, but not around us. So we have this thing where we're like, oh, I hope they get a dish of reality. Like they're on cloud nine. The universe is hard. So what happens is we're not bound by promise of free will. So what we can do is we can throw these emotional contagions. We can put this magnetic cloud of energy that will pull in more hard situation circumstance. So what happens is it's one thought, it's not going to hold much. But what happens to a person with deep-seated anger and resentment with you've ruined my life is they think about it morning, evening, nighttime before they go to bed. And what happens is they're increasing the magnetism of this dark cloud that's being cast on them. And this person can be in the highest frequency place, but the stuff around is working around them. It's like rain being under a cloud and going, it's not going to affect me. If it doesn't, wow, but it will. The rain's going to come down on you. So it's going to start to color things. And then people who aren't in touch with their intuition, they feel things from people. They're going to assume this cloud is representative that this person's not a good person. So now what happens is, let's say this goes on for weeks. I've increased this bad weather around this person. And now it's going to start to get through way out their emotions to a place of negative. It's going to start to attract negative situation, circumstance, and things around this person. And this is what's known as a ritual. It's the habitual running of something. And because of our creator fields controlling all matter, it's not exclusive to us. We could do it for our kids. We could do it for people we love. We could do it for people we're at odds with and things like that. So that's sort of the first thing of a ritual. But because we were never told, right? We're told we're children of Source, but we got no abilities. So it took away the accountability of going, man, I got to control my emotions because I could really alter and change somebody's life with this stuff. So that's sort of the first thing that everyone does. So when they go on the internet and people are committing suicide because of their feeds of people, the negative comments and things like that, when you can see energy, it's all of these people casting. Now, there is the reflections that put them in the situation to attract people doing that, and that supersedes this. But that person in this weak place is attracting all these people. They are throwing on all these heavy consciousness, the low energies, and now really bringing ruin to their life that's outside of that person's free will because of this whole situation. So it becomes this thing. So you write a negative comment about somebody. I'd be really careful because my favorite term in the world. So for people not in guided light healing, is this term. It exists everywhere. You'll see it in media, social media, everywhere. Confession through projection. That is the law of reflections. What you tell somebody they are, you're a liar, you're a cheat, you're dishonest. Those are all the things that you believe about yourself. Probably in a different area, but they're about you and that person's reflecting it. Is that person really a cheat, a liar, and all those things? No, they're just a reflection for you. So we've got all these people who are getting pissed at people that these people are reflecting back to them. They are the issue with this. Then they've got these rituals that they don't know because they were told you're children of God, but you don't have God abilities. Well, that omission is a problem because now everyone thinks it's harmless. It's harmless to put people in their place, to take them down a peg or two, but it's harmful. And this is why people are ending their lives. This is why kids are more depressed than they've ever been being on social media and things like that. It's because of these unconscious rituals. Then there were some very, very bright minds throughout history. George Washington talks about this. He was a part of the Masons, Freemasons. And he had talked about towards the end of his time in the Freemasons, that dark forces were starting to infiltrate and going to take over the group. Well, we know the story 250 years later. Today, the Masons are at the top of the pyramid with Illuminati and all these other groups. So they have known about these laws. They've known a lot of the laws that we teach at Guided Light Healing. And everything that we use in a positive way, everything in the universe is both, so they can use it in a very negative way. So now what they figured out is that there are things that generate power. And if they focus the power in the same way we focus our emotions on a person, now they can create what are conscious rituals. They can invest money and do things and involve other souls in this to amplify that energy to change the course of people's lives. So much so that there are people who pay millions of dollars to have sacrifices done in other countries to have people killed and things like that, because especially in the United States, prove I did black magic on you, especially with, Catholics and Christians saying it doesn't exist. It's the perfect crime for people, who are in these groups and things like that. And they're very showy with this stuff. I mean, go look at a Justin Timberlake video or Britney Spears video or Miley Cyrus. You mean to tell me you couldn't come up with anything more empowering than a devil eating children in your music video? Like, so this whole thing. So everyone is running around with these reviews and going, I'm doing the world justice. But if they knew that they were throwing this dark cloud on a person's life and they were actually doing this to them, I think people would do things very, very differently. I'm in the mindset that when somebody does something, even somebody I work with at Guided Light Healing, one of our employees, something goes wrong, I'm immediately going to target and go, you know what? This was brilliant thinking. I know you might be not happy with the result, but this was a brilliant thinking and it's going to lead to a better way of doing this. Amazing job on this. And this is how I start with something. And if I've got nothing else to say, I just want to say that and I'll walk away because I know I've created their law of focus to go, I did something brilliant. I noticed something brilliant. And eventually that's going to whitewash the mistakes that happen after that. So when I leave a review, and when I'm talking about something, I might, if it was a bad experience, I might go, it was a great place to go to fully understand what things work and what doesn't in the world. And I think it was so valuable for that. Now you're not putting this black cloud over them. And a lot of people don't think like, this person may be pouring their heart into it. It may be their teachers and the information they didn't know the difference between, and they're really trying to do good with it. And you're shutting off their whole business, their whole life, and their whole clients. People don't see in third, fourth, fifth, and sixth order of things. And I would never want to be the person who is responsible for a person losing their job or them wanting to end their life and things like that. And if people understood their power and just got in control of this, I mean, is it really that hard that in any negative situation to find something that was brilliant, genius, or good, or cheerleading worthy, and just put that into their life and how it's going to consciously, subconsciously, emotionally affect them and make their life better? Who wouldn't want to do that? But because of all the omissions, we don't have power in this world. We are like cannons pointing everywhere and just shooting each other. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's hard being a creator. Whether you're creating content online or creating a business, it's hard to create something new and something that's important to people. And you're never going to please everybody. And if you try to speak to everyone, you speak to no one. You don't really have anything that stands out, that connects, because you're being this super polished person. And it's funny because I've gotten negative reviews, and I'm not talking about this to deter people from leaving me negative reviews, but I've also been the person who's left negative reviews for things. And as I said, it's been a while. Something felt intuitively unnatural about it. Like I was sensing some of the information that you said, but I've found too that oftentimes I'll get a negative review. Like I got one this year that said, she's just always sharing her own stories. And in the same day, like a negative review saying I talk too much, just let the guests talk. And then in the same day, I got one other review and one email. And I feel like Source does this to show me, like, you've got to be okay with this if you're going to be vulnerable and put yourself out in the world. The other two were saying, I just really appreciate your stories even more than the guests. And so I'm like, okay, who am I gonna try to serve this person who decided to leave 1 star like that? They're clearly not my person. Just tune into something else. There's millions of podcasts out there.
And that's the other thing people don't realize. Like, fine, they're not a match for you, but why are you going to ruin it for other people? That's the other thing. Like, There might be another, and it typically doesn't, But why would you want to discourage another? Maybe you're the person who changes that other person's life, but they're hung up on like Yelp and things like that. And they see a review. They're like, I got to find somebody else. It's like you're messing with other people's soul path, soul pull on this stuff. And you know, the funny thing about that, I have two things to say about that. Historically, the greatest teachers in the world, there was something that has been a constant throughout humanity. Stories. We are storytellers. We love stories. It is the one thing that will separate. I talk about this every once in a while. You can take a paperclip, put it on eBay, probably won't even get a penny for it. Okay. But you can take the same paperclip and go, this was Hemingway's paperclip. And this is the thing he chewed on. It gave him chipped his tooth and he had the great idea for this thing and blah, blah, blah. And this whole thing, you make it heartfelt and how it saved his life one day when he wanted to end his life because he couldn't come up with his things. And I put that story. Now this paperclip's gone for $100,000. It's because of the story. And what people are not realizing in the world right now is nobody likes instruction manuals. So why are people going out there and reading instruction manuals? It's hard to watch. It's like, I don't need an instruction manual. Because of the mirror neurons in my brain, I need experiences. I need stories. And you can save me time by telling me a story, because in neuroscience, they figured out all these parts of my brain are going to light up. The same parts that are lighting up in your brain is you're reliving the story. And now it becomes my story. And instead of having to spend all this time creating my own experience of that to get rooted to it, I can root from your story. I can have the experience of the story. And now I'm not this person spewing out a definition with no experience, which I say is 98% of the people out there. Now I'm a person who's going, oh, you want to learn about this law? I've got 64 stories that I can tell you about this law. And you're going, wow, they've really experienced this thing. And wow, I feel like I know it just as well as them. Storytelling is the thing that has not caught on yet, but it's been throughout all of history. This is what we teach our teachers at Guided Light Healing is the thing that will separate you from the rest of the world is showing that you have the experience. Teaching from a story, you will teach somebody 1,000 times better than reading a definition that they will store in their brain and go, oh, that'll be there when I need it. It won't. And that becomes the whole process. And then the other person, the person who left the review, again, taking that confession through projection thing, I can tell you right now that financially, they feel like they have too many stories, too many reasons why that things aren't working out financially the way they want in their life. And then they're seeing you is this person who's reflecting that back to them and taking it out on you, trying to throw the dark cloud your way. And it's just a disaster. And the sooner the world figures this out, the better it's going to be.
All of the amens possible on your story monologue there. That has been what I've been knee deep, maybe brain deep. I don't know. I'm writing a book. I wrote a book.
Underwater.
Yes. I wrote a book on story as a consciousness technology. And so I just secured an agent. Big things are happening over here. And this is what all of my life experience from the unique facets that I've lived, 20 years in marketing and copywriting, learning that stories create behavior change, not logic and features, which is why Apple sells an identity. But then even seemingly for a long time, it just felt like this kind of offhand obsession with understanding how the Bible was actually made, what Jesus was actually teaching, the reason that Jesus spoke in parables, how so much of the meaning of the Bible was lost when biblical literalism emerged 300 years after Jesus died. Never the intent of what he was trying to teach, what Greek mythology knew. We have always known that story is the technology for consciousness to evolve. Yet many people have just forgotten. They've let go of that.
It's all the YouTubers, they're going out there. It's like, I know this thing. It's like hearing information and parroting information. And nobody's watching these videos, but everyone thinks they're watching it because there was a couple YouTubers who made it work, because it was a new phenomenon. They didn't do it because they were doing it right. They did it because they were new and interesting. And then everyone started going like, oh, kill me. Like, please don't tell me another definition of how this works or, read your encyclopedia to me. And it's a phenomenon that's dying really quick. And this is why the whole YouTube thing is cratering on destroying right now, is because it became and turned into this whole thing where there were YouTubers who were renting plane hangars to simulate being on private jets. And they're getting 15 other YouTubers to rent a hotel. And they each get an hour worth of filming to show this life. Like, it's being faked in the same ways that reality TV was. And now everyone's turning to podcasts because they haven't figured out how to replicate and fake the podcast. Podcasts are about stories. It's about getting to know people. It's about the relationships and things. In humanity, they always get drawn to things because of the intuition, but the brain can never explain why. And what I like to do is explain the why in that. And all of these people are in a fad right now, and it's going to catch them off guard. They're going to be on to the next thing, not knowing why they're on for the podcast, but they're really there for the stories. They're really there to feel like, because here's the thing, if all my stories are good, you're going to turn me off right away, because there's this law of pedestals that if I'm saying you're great, at the same time I'm saying you're great, it's you're great. And I know because I'm not great. I'm tearing myself down at the same time I'm picking you up. And that never feels good either. So what a lot of people haven't realized with stories is that you want to be loved by people, share your deepest, darkest, horrific stories, because two things are going to happen. One, that person is going to go, wow, they've achieved this stuff in their life and they're a train wreck. They make me feel good about my life, which means maybe I could achieve and attain those things. And at the same time, I love this person, because true love, as Source would give to us, would be knowing all of the negatives, because Source is all knowing, all of our positives, and going, you're perfect. Just like a mother might do to a child. Sometimes there's less unconditional love there, but that's the idea. So that's sort of the next things with stories, is when people realize that if I can tear myself down, because automatically, if I have a show, you're going to think I'm amazing. So if I tear myself down all the time, but in a healthy, balanced way of going, this is what I lived through, and if you have this or better, you can achieve better than me. Now you're really going to be loved. And that's a much, much higher conscious level of storytelling. But you're doing a lot of that in your stories with what you've disclosed and what I've had to overcome. And people are like, wow, if that's her stuff, then I can achieve something like that. And hopefully with me, when I talk to students and clients, I was like, if I'm a good teacher, I want you to go well above and beyond anything I've achieved in this lifetime. Like, I want to live through you doing something great, not, oh, you'll never be able to touch me and what I've been able to do in this life. So
Exactly. And yeah, I think that is why that's always come a bit natural to me. I don't like when people don't share. I understand that it's not for everybody, but me feeling comfortable sharing that I sharded in the college courtyard commando mid-convo with my booty call in college.
Never happened.
It did. Yeah. I don't know, just get it out there. I'm sure you've sharded too. And so.
Oh my God. I've been walked on by a parent with a girlfriend in high school. Who's like, I know you guys are going to mess around when I leave the house. Don't do it. And then had her walk in, come to find out later on, but literally all up in daughter, fully naked on the living room floor going, no!
Oh, no. Oh, my God. And those are the fun ones to tell. They're the fun ones to receive. And we realize we're not going to die when we open up about them. So I love to leave listeners with something to ground some of this information into their life, whether it's a way to work with one of the laws this week or just something specific to focus on to make the theoretical tangible.
I would say learn about reflections is going to change your life. But what I would say is the big test in the world right now, what we've seen with the pandemic and what we're going to see after, whether it's civil war or stock market collapse or any of the things that are big question marks in the world right now. It's all designed to get you to go, nobody is going to tell me better about my soul path, soul pull than what I have a deep pull in my heart. And how you identify the deep pull in the heart is it should be the thing that's not born out of, I was restricted and this was kept for me in my life, so I'm going to go after this, right? So I was told I wasn't special my whole life, so I'm going to be a singer or I'm going to be an actor. What I'm talking about is the thing that if you had any free time in the day, how would you be of service? How would you give and not need payment for? That is an indicator of a true heart pull. And when you found one of those of I don't know, I see this thing going on in the world. I have no reason why in my life, but I'm pulled towards this. I want to help contribute to humanity in this way. And whether it's with listening to your internal voice or your path, or, everyone is going to disagree with something new. Every inventor, Edison, Faraday, they've all had best friends who tried to bring them to mental institutions. But the idea is, and what the lesson is in the world, and what will get you ahead of whatever's to come in the world is going, when you've identified a true calling, a heart path, soul pull, heart-led thing, do not let anybody tell you how it's supposed to be done. Find those answers within, and you'll make mistakes, but because the mistakes will help focus you more to where you are going to be and what the tools are you'll need. But when you have a deep knowing that something is right or something is wrong, you have to put that first. It does not matter how many degrees they have, if they are a president or whatever it is. But we just got to get clear on, is it coming from a lack, or is it coming from, I would do this 24/7. It's just who I am. And to stop, to ask questions. This is why at Guided Light Healing, we back up everything with science. We explain it so well. And then what we say is, don't listen to us. Go experience this stuff for yourself. Develop your own stories on it. And if you have questions, we will answer it to the best as we can, but find your own path with it. Do not take anything we say as a thing. Like, this is why we teach people intuition right away, so they can verify and find new things, and then we can help get them to fully understanding it. So developing that, when something, like something is not good for you, start embracing, I have to listen to this because this is my big test. This is my big path. And I promise you, if we all do that on the planet, the things that have happened could not happen. And that would be my big piece of advice, is learning to decode and to translate that internal voice. So,
well, for listeners who are loving everything they're hearing and want to know how to work with you more deeply, where's the best place for them to find you?
I would say start with elevated consciousness. I'm not one of those people who will tell you to jump right in. I want you to, again, form your own conclusions and to see, just like what we had talked about a little while ago, is the way we communicate these ideas and the way we talk about the physics of the universe and things like that. Does it resonate with you? And if it doesn't, there are a million other people out there who can be of helpful. I mean, I'm not going to reach 7 billion people on the planet. That's not my story. My story is, there are certain people who speak the languages in which I talk in, and they're going to resonate with it. So I would say, listen to elevated consciousness. See if you can find where those things existed in your life. And then if you decide it's like we communicate well, we intersect well, then reach out. And we've got the best free programs. We've got the best programs that I could ever think to create to help people achieve their soul path, soul pull. That's something I've specialed in. But I would say start with the podcast there. And, at least it'll be a good laugh, and maybe more, it'll let you see the world differently, and hopefully in an empowering way. Every once in a while, we get the students, they're like, so I listened to this episode. I'm like, no, this is going to take 4 hours to write this class, because they're like, you shattered this idea. I thought I was manifesting things and I'm not, in like train wrecks. So there are a few episodes that are going to be like, dun, dun, dun. But I would start there for sure. The other place, all of our content, the free learning and classes, is at guidedlighthealing.com.
Your challenge for this week is to identify one true heart calling, something that you would want to do even if you never got paid for it. That comes from genuine service instead of trying to prove yourself or compensate for past wounds. So ask yourself, if I had unlimited free time, how would I naturally want to contribute to the world? So it's not about your current career or what you think you should want. It's about that pull that you feel towards something bigger than yourself. So pay attention to what lights you up when you're not trying to impress anyone. All the links from this episode are at mindlove.com/414, by the way. But what Alessandro shared today about universal laws actually points to something really big happening on our planet right now. We are in a time where individual healing isn't just personal anymore. It is planetary service. So every time you recognize a reflection and you heal an unconscious pattern, you're literally raising the frequency of the collective field. When you stop projecting your shadows onto other people and taking responsibility for your energetic impact, you are contributing to a massive shift in consciousness that's rippling across the globe. So the internal voice that Alessandro talked about isn't just guiding your personal path. It's your soul's way of participating in humanity's evolution. Your individual awakening then becomes a gift to the whole collective. So give it a try. Let me know how it goes. You can find me on Instagram at mindlovemelissa, where I am posting more little tidbits, especially as I work through this book process, which is really exciting. There's so many cool things that I have never brought to you guys that will be in this book. And so I'll be trickling them out in more ways than one. Also, you need to know Story Love is going live again. And this time I'm adding a brand new module on offer creation because there are two types of people who join. Those like Alice, who just joined this week. Congratulations, Alice. I'm so happy to be working with you. She joined because she wants to understand her purpose more and see her story through a more empowering lens. There's also people on the business side, learning not just how to identify their signature story, but how to use it in all of their marketing, how to create solid offers that people actually want and get them out in the world through platforms like podcasts. So if you're ready to turn your story into your superpower, reach out to me on Instagram at mindlovemelissa. Check the emails I've been sending out. There is an application, or if you just want to hop on a call to see if it's right for you, please reach out to me and we'll chat about it. See if it is the right thing for your particular goals. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.